In the heart of Paris, a woman worked in a drafty, abandoned shed. Rain leaked through the glass roof, and winter winds bit at her fingers. But she wasn't just enduring the cold. She was chasing ghosts. Not the kind from stories, but invisible forces radiating from a black, unassuming rock. This woman was Marie Curie, and she was about to pull back a curtain on a secret universe, one that was both magnificent and deadly. What she didn't know was that her greatest discovery held a second, darker secret, one that would take a century to fully understand. Her journey began not in a lab, but in a Poland under Russian rule, where a young Maria Skłodowska secretly attended a flying university for women. She was brilliant, hungry for knowledge, and fueled by a quiet fire of defiance. Arriving in Paris, a city of light and intellectual giants, she was an outsider, with little money but an insatiable mind. She studied at the Sorbonne, often surviving on bread and tea, sometimes fainting from hunger. Yet she graduated first in her class in physics. It was in Paris she met Pierre Curie, a scientist as brilliant and unconventional as she was. Their connection wasn't just intellectual, it was a meeting of souls. He saw her genius when others saw only a woman. They married, and their lab became their world, while others explored the known. Marie was captivated by a new mystery. Rays discovered by Henri Becquerel, emanating from uranium. Where did this energy come from? It seemed to violate the laws of physics, creating something from nothing. Marie had a radical, almost heretical idea. The energy wasn't a result of a chemical reaction, but came from the very heart of the atom itself. This was the birth of a new field, radioactivity. She began testing every element she could find. Her electrometer, a device Pierre helped design, was her only guide. It was tedious, painstaking work. Then she tested a sample of pitchblende, a uranium ore. The reading went off the charts. It was far more radioactive than pure uranium should be. Her logic was simple but profound. There must be something else in the pitchblende, an unknown element, incredibly powerful. This set them on an epic quest. The Curies obtained tons of pitchblende waste from a mine in Austria. The shed became their factory. For 4 years, they toiled in conditions that would horrify a modern scientist. Marie, dressed in a dusty, acid-stained smock, stirred huge vats of boiling, toxic sludge with an iron rod as tall as she was. It was grueling physical labor, a process of chemical separation on an industrial scale, but performed by just 2 people. They were isolating fractions of a gram from tons of rock. They had no protective gear, no understanding of the immense danger. They were literally bathing in radiation. Their hands became cracked and sore. They suffered from fatigue and aches, dismissing it as a consequence of their hard work. At night, Marie would place small vials of their refined material by their bedside. They glowed in the dark with an eerie, beautiful blue-green light. It was like a fairy tale, she wrote. They were living with their creation, completely unaware it was silently attacking their bodies, rewriting their very cells. Finally, after years of relentless effort, they did the impossible. They isolated not 1, but 2 new elements. The first they named polonium, in honor of Marie's oppressed homeland. The second was a luminous powerhouse, 1,000,000 times more radioactive than uranium. They called it radium, from the Latin word for ray. The world was stunned. The atom was not a solid, indivisible marble. It was a tiny, violent solar system, bursting with energy. Marie Curie had forever changed our understanding of reality. In 1903, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to Henri Becquerel and Pierre Curie. Marie was initially excluded, but Pierre, in an act of incredible integrity, refused to accept the award unless Marie was included. He wrote to the committee, stating the work was hers as much as his. The committee relented. Marie Curie became the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. But their triumph was short-lived. In 1906, tragedy struck. Pierre, walking in the rain-slicked streets of Paris, slipped and was killed instantly by a horse-drawn carriage. Marie's world shattered. Her partner in science and in life was gone. The world expected her to fade away, a grieving widow. Instead, she did something unprecedented. She took his professorship at the Sorbonne, becoming its first female professor. She poured her grief into her work, determined to continue the legacy they had built together. She went on to isolate pure radium metal and, in 1911, won a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry. She remains the only person to ever win Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields. During World War I, she didn't stay in her lab. She developed mobile X-ray units, known as petites curies, and drove them to the front lines herself, training other women to use the technology to locate shrapnel in wounded soldiers. She saved an estimated 1 million lives. For years, the world was gripped by radium mania. People believed this glowing element was a miracle cure. It was put in toothpaste, cosmetics, water, and chocolate. Wealthy patrons flocked to spas to drink radium water for vitality. Marie Curie, however, was cautious. She understood its power to destroy diseased cells, laying the groundwork for radiation therapy in cancer treatment. But she also suspected its dangers. She herself was growing weaker, suffering from aplastic anemia, a bone marrow disease. She died in 1934 at the age of 66. The official cause was her long-term exposure to radiation. Her body was so radioactive that it was buried in a light-lined coffin. Her notebooks, her cookbooks, even her furniture, remain dangerously radioactive to this day, stored in lead-lined boxes in France's National Library. To view them, you must wear protective clothing and sign a waiver. She was consumed by the very element she gave to the world. But here is the surprising twist, the secret that lay hidden for nearly a century. While Marie Curie is forever linked with the dangers of radiation, recent analysis has revealed a more complex story. In 1995, her body was exhumed to be reinterred in the Pantheon, France's national mausoleum. Scientists took this opportunity to test her remains. They expected to find catastrophic levels of radium, but they didn't. The levels of radium in her bones were surprisingly low, not enough to have been the primary cause of her fatal illness. So what really killed Marie Curie? The investigation pointed to another culprit: her work during World War I with the X-ray machines. Unlike her careful work with radium, which she often handled with tongs, her exposure to X-rays was prolonged, frequent, and unprotected. For 4 years, she worked in close proximity to the powerful, penetrating gamma rays, with no shielding whatsoever. The very act of saving 1 million soldiers had sealed her own fate. The ghosts she chased in that Parisian shed were not the ones that ultimately claimed her. It was her selfless wartime heroism that delivered the final, fatal dose. Her legacy is not just one of discovery, but of ultimate sacrifice, hidden in plain sight for decades. She didn't just light up the invisible world, she gave her life to it twice over. Thank you for watching. If you were as inspired by Marie Curie's story as we are, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of the hidden figures who changed our world.